Hi everyone, it's Steve Podmore. So I'm here, it's Saturday, I'm here in Canary Wharf, and I'm going to go live on Clubhouse tomorrow morning, but I'm also going to go live for the second time tomorrow at 10 p.m. So my first session tomorrow at 8 o'clock is my normal room, although the title tomorrow is Reinventing Finance, Help Reinvent Finance to Tackle the SDGs, which is a discussion, a broad discussion about how we can reinvent finance to obviously tackle the global goals for sustainable development. And the discussion will touch upon my model for Transform Global, a model for a new World Bank, but better, and getting feedback on it, and a broad discussion on what needs to be done. So we'll be looking at policy level, we'll be looking at fund structures, platforms, and of course the entrepreneurs on the ground. It's generally a great discussion. People coming in from all over the world, from South Africa, from Europe, from the States, even the States, in the early morning at 8 o'clock UK time. But also, what we will be doing is talking about, we'll be touching upon the discussion that I'll have later in the evening at 10 o'clock UK time, and that's going to be about The Key Man. Now, The Key Man is an incredible book. I'm about halfway through it, and I've got to finish it by the end of tomorrow. It only came out a couple of days ago, and it's about Arif Naqvi and Abraj Capital. Now, Simon Clark is an amazing journalist he's got a rich background. I met him originally at Bloomberg, and Will Lauch, and they have written this amazing expose on the wrongdoing of what was really the private equity business for emerging or growth markets, run by an individual called Arif Naqvi, who spoke a very, very good game about impact investment. But beneath the surface, there was horrendous narcissism and just frankly wrongdoing on every level. Now, in the end, they managed about $14 billion. And he had done a number of supposedly successful private equity deals initially that helped start a reputation. He'd worked in a number of organizations before then, and was truly ambitious. So he managed to turn that ambition into a couple of successes. And then over time, he created this thing called Abraj Capital. Apparently, Abraj means towers in Arabic, but in Urdu and another language, it means now we shall rule, I think is what I remember from the book so far. So tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, we're going to be talking about the book. For those who have read it and for those who have not, I'll give the highlights. And I want to do this on a regular basis. Now, Simon has said that he may well come onto Clubhouse with us. I do hope he and William can at some point, or possibly I'll do it as a Zoom call and have Clubhouse come in as a back channel so we can do incredible Q&A. But the goal basically is to look at this from a perspective of, is it good or bad for the world of the Sustainable Development Goals? A lot of major organizations and major philanthropists and impact investors had put incredible faith in this man who, when it all came crashing down, turned out had siphoned off about 300 million or more, had used some money from some funds to pay the expenses of the business and bonuses, and essentially operated without any real governance, and through a cult of personality and a culture of fear. This is totally the opposite of what impact investment is about. But what's interesting about the story is we need true ambition. A lot of what Arif Naqvi said, if he walked the talk as well as spoke it, it would be absolutely true. You know, we need real ambition. We need to correct imbalances. It is the West and the banks of Canary Wharf and other places that have created many of the challenges in the world and not addressed them. But to address them, we have to unlock institutional money on an unprecedented scale and get it deployed, not to private equity deals, which often are actually adding to the problem. There are, of course, amazing private equity organizations who are actively solving these issues. and operating honestly and thoroughly. But frankly, what we need is capital deployed at the startup and the infrastructure building stage, and these are the early stage capacity building that really no one wants to do. So although Abraj and Arif used this amazing story of impact to kind of capture the attention of many bigwigs in the world of finance, how do we do something at scale to address the issues that he was speaking about? So in the discussion at 10 o'clock tomorrow night, UK time, so I think that's 2 o'clock Pacific time, and you can work out where else in the world, the goal is really to talk about this book. Hopefully people have read it, and if not, I really encourage you to. But we want to read it from the perspective of, has this been good? Has it been bad for the worlds of impact investment? And frankly, I believe the world of impact investment is not that impactful, despite amazing things being done. Is it really impactful in the scale of what needs to be done in the world, and is mainstream finance? Well, the answer to me is no. It's a blaring no. But how do we change things? Well, I've got a proposal to create what I cheekily call a new World Bank, but better. And that entity, Transform Global, is really designed to have the governance and the structure through a foundation and its transparency, the entities like Abraj Capital and others, including some of the largest mainstream private equity and venture capital funds, have not had. Imagine this: if you're a pension fund investor, or if you're a pension fund or a beneficiary of a pension fund, and the pension fund invests into a venture capital organization or private equity organization, there's virtually no transparency on the nature of those investments. Now, one could say there is ESG and PRI and other regulations and other mechanisms to supposedly underpin the good that is done. But I don't see much evidence, frankly, of that happening in the real world when it's looked at honestly and in context. So that's what I'm seeking to do with Transform Global, is to create an organization truly that's fit for purpose and that can do what's called impact load balancing. Basically, we need to be able to take a lot of risk. But the problem is, if you take risk in very big investments, it's kind of bet the farm type risks on every opportunity. Whereas if you create a structure that is designed to be diverse and blended, so blended in terms of the capital that comes in, and blended in terms of the nature and the structure of how investments are built up, with no big investment made without earlier stages and without organized help and support to get a lot more understanding and a lot more data and a lot more evidence that impacts will truly be made. If you don't do that, then it is truly risky, even at the late stage, as we witnessed with Abraj, particularly when you've got essentially a narcissist in charge and people who frankly have been bought out by the bonuses and the culture that frankly I once experienced here. I mean, where I am sitting is 10 Cabot Square, and this used to be the headquarters of Ogilvy and Mather. It's actually, this building here is Barclays Bank, and on the top 2 floors, Ogilvy, the ad agency, was based. And I remember, in fact, I don't know whether I can show you. I might be able to show you. Yeah, just give me a second. So just over there, let me see if I can show you. So over there are some bars. You can see there, Port East. And this area, which I'm not doing a very good job of turning around, is really the area that I used to inhabit when I was based at Ogilvy. And I was given the offices there by Paul O'Donnell, who was the chairman of Ogilvy, and others like Rory Sutherland and others were very supportive. Although frankly I didn't get as much help as I thought by the world's biggest ad agency. But I did get offices, I did get the ability to build relationships with people in that ad world and understand really how we need to build brands and communicate in a way that surpasses essentially the organizations in the world that are doing harm, but often don't appear to be so. So that's another story, we'll cover that on another time. But what occurred one time, there used to be a bar actually on the 9th floor where Ogilvy was. There was about 1,000 people in this ad agency or collection of ad agencies that did PR and did social media and did mainstream TV advertising and everything you can think of. And I remember having a discussion with one of the heads of their art department, Mark, and we had a beer there, and the bar closed, so it was late, and we went to one of the bars over there, and I'll never forget it. We had a young guy who was drinking with a bunch of others, and he came up to us, and two older guys, and he said, "I bet I make more money than you do." Those were his words. And I was absolutely astounded. In fact, what was really interesting about the time was this was just a little after the launch of the Green Investment Bank in the United Kingdom. And I'd been at the launch event where let me think of his name, Green, I think, the head of HSBC at the time, who actually was a lay preacher. Can you get this? And this was a gentleman who was there at the launch of the Green Investment Bank at the Bank of America at King Edward's Hall in St. Paul's. And it was a big event. And I remember asking a question about, will this Green Investment Bank, will it do the early stage investments and the important capacity building? And the answer came back, we're focused on late stage wind and offshore wind and other late stage opportunities. Well, that completely ruined it for me, because what I realized and what I passionately believed back then was the early stage is the most important bit. And yes, putting more money to late stage green and clean investments, it's good, but unless we water the root, we cannot eat the fruit. Anyway, I chatted to him afterwards and didn't get anywhere, but I still chatted to him. So back to my experience here in the bar in Canary Wharf. So this young banker who had said this, I said, really, that's interesting. So you think you make more money than us? Why would you even say that? What's wrong with you? And I said, and more importantly, which bank do you work at? And he said, I work at HSBC. I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, because I was at an event just last week with, I'm not sure it was Michael Green, I forget his surname, first name. And I was there with your chairman, and I was chatting to him. What's your name? Maybe I could give him a call and tell him about what you've just said. And this young guy kind of skulked away. But that example of that sort of testosterone and that uber bravado, that uber confidence that is really fueled many of the banks, the trading houses, I think he was a trader, that's what they thrive upon. They want to pump these young people up with their overconfidence so they can just really make money. They're products, they're little more than products. And that's really what, reading the book so far, or listening to the book, I'm listening on Audible, that's what it appears Abraj was doing also. It was really just instilling a culture of fear, paying well, paying highly, but with no real rule or reason as to who was getting. There was no formula. It was just really the whims of a despot. And people who were quite, some of them quite amazing, but obviously they overlooked the wrongdoing that was obvious to them. And perhaps, with hindsight, it might have worked out. He was giving a lot of money to charity and to important causes to burnish his reputation. But really fascinatingly, obviously this was not long after the Arab Spring. It was time when there was a lot of tension in the markets, those growth markets or emerging markets where Abraj was operating. And therefore, had things been a little more stable, then maybe these investments had have worked out, and there wouldn't have been the need to essentially rob Peter to pay Paul, and therefore he might have rode it out and been one of the billionaires that we know and love today, who frankly got there through questionable means. So I think this is a really important cautionary tale Now, I've been working on my idea for 15 years, and it's been hell. It's been hell when I was here. I didn't have a lot of money, but I had determination. And one day I'll tell the story of how that raw idea I had almost 15 years ago, almost September, October 2006 is when I started, and it's now July 2021. Hard to believe. I remember every bit of it. But yeah, the point I wanted to make is that sometimes great things take a long time, and we have to meet resistance on the way. But we shouldn't meet so much resistance, and we wouldn't if capital got more intelligently to those people who are trying to genuinely do good for the world, if they were truly helped, rather than raped and pillaged, which I think is what often happens. And even the impact investment that goes in, it's going in often in small dribs and drabs and not systemically. So that's what we're trying to change. Yes, Saturday I'm going to go and upload this or edit and upload this video. I do encourage you to join me in Clubhouse at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, Sunday morning. The room is titled fundingtheglobalgoals.tv, or that's the club on Clubhouse. You can find the link in my profile, and if you're not already on Clubhouse, I really suggest you get on board. The last 4 months have been remarkable for me and for many others too, and it's genuinely enabling the kind of collaboration that we need in this world right now. So yeah, get on Clubhouse, but also join me in the room tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 hours, so there's time for you to come in, or indeed join me at the other side of the day, 10 o'clock, where we're just going to talk about the key man and Abraj Capital. And hopefully one day Simon and Will come in and talk about this and their experience writing the book and their learnings. And hopefully, we can add some rich content. I'm going to be recording the room so we can, over time, build up a little bit more of an understanding. And this piece of work, we can look at it objectively and fairly in the context of what the world really needs to achieve. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll speak to you tomorrow or certainly in the coming weeks and months, and particularly when Transform Global launches. I welcome you to get in touch, get involved, tell us what you think, or even the run-up too. So thanks again. I'll speak to you soon. So I forgot to add that I've met a number of Abraj executives over the years. First of all, a guy called Fred Secray, who I met in 2012 at an impact investment event that happened in Lugano, where he told me all about Abraj, and that I should meet someone called Sev Vativat Pillai, who Abraj had just acquired with Arias Capital. And there's someone called Lloyd West, who I met there. Lloyd, I think, stayed until 2016 and then got out, but Sev continued on. I met Sev a few times. He wouldn't have a full meeting with me. And Lloyd would originally, one of Sev's executives, but really got nowhere. It was like they're too busy with the acquisition, i.e. Abraj of Arias. So I got nowhere. I met him multiple times at different events and in and around Mayfair. I remember once after meeting him quickly in the Cafe Nero, that used to be there in Mayfair, I followed up. I sent him the summary, obviously, and followed up a couple of days later with his number. And he was mad because he thought I was the Porsche garage with his car. So he wasn't very keen to talk. He was happy to talk initially until he found out that I was who I was. And then it's like, no, I'm busy. But then I met Shahid Naqvi, I think Abraj's or Aris, one of his relatives, with someone called Shakir Merali and Lloyd. I met in Aris' boardroom next to his office in Mayfair, and just around the corner from Berkeley Square. Again, got nowhere with that. It was just like, we're focused on other things. And others, I met someone called Taran Mehta, I think it was, and Toli Olatundu, or Temi Olatundu, at a Milken event. So, all in all, I had a few little run-ins, and while This journey for me has been tough. In essence, it's taught me an awful lot. What I want to be, what I want to do, and how I want to run this organization, and how I transform global, and how I don't. And you could argue that watch what Abraj has done and do the opposite. Although you have to be honest and say there were some things that they did well. They raised a lot of money. They just didn't govern what they did, and they ruled through fear. And I certainly don't want to do that. That's really not what my vision is all about, and it's not what we need to create capitalism as it needs to be. So yeah, just a little other interlude. We'll talk about that a little bit on the call tomorrow evening, Sunday evening, 10 p.m. and hopefully in the coming weeks. If you've had a run-in with Abraj, or if you know someone who has, get them on the call. It will be very interesting. Or reach out another time if you're listening to this historically, and let's do this. I want to run this room on a regular basis, maybe not every week, but certainly every week or couple of weeks, because I think there's so many lessons for us all. So yeah, that's me signing out. Thanks again, and I'll catch you later. Thanks.